So I'm not sure how many people are out in the public watching us, but we will move forward. So in presenting the 2020 financial plan, we have a number of slides. I will go through them individually and we will proceed. So there's a basic formula with the calculation of taxes in the province of Manitoba. That formula has three parts to it. And part one is the assessment, part two is the mill rate, and part three is the dollar levy requirements, or more commonly referred to as tax levy. So basically the assessment multiplied by the mill rate equals your tax levy, or to state it another way, we take our dollar levy requirements that we need in a year, divided by the assessment, and that gives you the mill rate. And municipalities are often heard talking about mill rates, so that's how the mill rate is calculated. The next part of the formula is the assessment. So back in the early 1990s, the province of Manitoba established a market value assessment system. That assessment system is used as our property values, and it's used, and the assessment is recalculated every 2 years to ensure that assessments are close to market values. In 2020, the provincial average increase in assessment was equal to 7.02% over the last reassessment, which happened in 2018. So what does this mean? Basically, any municipality that has a higher than provincial average will assume a higher burden of taxation for the education levies. In the RM of Morris, basically any properties under the 12.5% assessment increase will probably have a decrease in taxes, while those in excess of that will see an increase in taxes. And for Morris, our assessment increase was 12.5%, as you can see right there. So then we break down our taxable classification or taxable assessment graphically, and you see residential assessment is right around 23%, and the farm assessment is 69%. Commercial assessment is around 6%, and institutional is around 1%. Pipeline is 1%, and then railway is 0.2%. So what the graph indicates is that 69% of the taxes levied in the municipality come from the agricultural sector. And then in keeping with the mission and vision statements of the RM, we are actively pursuing commercial industrial developments for both Rosenort and Low Farm. And we do have industrial lots or industrial parks in both of those communities with industrial lots available. So the next slide, there's a lot of numbers there, but basically it is the assessment breakdown from 2006 to the present. And we have a taxable assessment in 2020 of $420,677,580. So 1 mil would raise $420,000. In 2019, based on 137 municipalities that are in Manitoba, we were number 27 as far as being the highest, and that includes the city Winnipeg, city Brandon, and all the other cities. And in 2020, the RM of Morris has moved up to 25th place. So then we focus a little bit on property tax invoices. And this is a bill that a lot of you see every year. And so here is the market value assessment that we just talked about. This bill happens to have two different classifications. One is farmland and one is residential. So we take the market value and we portion it out at those rates, 45 and 26%, to get your taxable assessment. That taxable assessment becomes here in this column here, and then you multiply it by the mill rate and you get your tax dollars for the year. Very quick little overview. Under legislation, municipalities are required to collect taxes on behalf of school divisions, as well as the province of Manitoba on other property. Other property is basically commercial property. So our focus is a little bit on education right now. So if we look at our tax bills or tax levy, in 2020, the breakdown is coming in graphically here. We have 57% of our tax levy, total tax levy, including education, and 43% is municipal. So that's on your tax bill that you'll see, that's the breakdown. Bring us back to the mission statement a little bit. The mission statement of the municipality is to promote growth and provide higher quality services to ratepayers and residents at a reasonable cost. The next guiding principle, guiding statement that we have is our vision statement. A future with a growing, sustainable communities and a diverse economic base resulting in more people, more jobs, and more housing. These mission and vision statements have been around for a number of years. So this brings us now to our 2020 proposed expenditures, and we'll bring it in line by line. So the municipal expenditures, and we'll use 2019 versus 2020. These are budget numbers, and so the percentage changes are shown there. I won't read out each line. This presentation will be available online after the everything is over. So just you can see the different categories coming in. These are the expense categories that we have in our municipal world, and this is the same across all municipalities in Manitoba. Some of them just have more details than others. So we bring in total expenditures in 2020 are $6,442,030.93. So 3.58% increase over 2019. Now keep that 3.58% number in mind, because we'll see that again shortly. So we show it graphically, and again we see general government services. Now this is our total budget. So 13% of our budget is general government, 7% is protection, 31% is transportation, environment is 3 or less, around 3, health and welfare is just less than 1, planning and development is less than 1, economic development is around between 1 and 2, recreation and culture is around 3, fiscal and capital is 32%, and then we have our allocation to reserves is 10%. So that now we switch to our revenues. So again, shown line by line in the different categories of revenues that we have. Added taxes, this is basically our annual added taxes based on building construction in the previous years. Building permits, sales of municipal services, and this is whether we do public works equipment or whatever we charge for the sales that we have internally or externally. Land rentals, we have some farmland that we do rent out, and interest and penalties. And then we have federal and provincial grants. As you can see, the grants were considerably down. That is because last year in 2019, we received a double amount for our gas tax. So that was about $163,000. So that's reflected here. And then other miscellaneous revenues. Again, and then reserve transfers and capitals, or reserve and capital transfers. So here we go, total revenues, again, up 3.58%. And so the tax levy itself is actually going down by just over $300 or 0.01%. That is the proposed, this is the proposed tax levy for 2020. So bringing in graphically the municipal revenues. So there's your tax levy of 64%, added taxes of 2%, building revenues of just less than 1%, sales of municipal services around 4%, land rentals just less than 1%, interest and penalties around 1%, provincial and federal grants, other miscellaneous revenue, and then we have our reserve transfers. And when we're talking about reserve transfers, basically we're moving things out of our different reserves to cover off our capital items. So then let's focus a little bit on some operating budget programs. So we're looking at sidewalks and boulevards, 25,000 to complete a portion of First Street East in Lowell Farm, ditch closure and sidewalk replacement. Some of that started last year already. Another item we have is the gravel program, and we're increasing 2 roads, increasing the level of gravel on Road 31 North, approximately 10 miles, and Road 27 North between Road 1 East and PR 422. This is the first year, so we're looking at double application this year. Then we also have a 2020 drainage program for the rural area. This does not include drainage for the urban centers, only rural area. And then council also thought it was wise to establish a infrastructure reserve. So we have done that, and in 2020 we are allocating $35,000 into that infrastructure reserve. The infrastructure reserve long term will be used for things like bridges and any other potential infrastructure that we have in the future that may be needed. Then we have our ongoing fire department operations. And people like to see the big trucks and sirens and things like that. So we'll focus a little bit on fire department for just a moment. Currently, we have 3 fire stations, namely Rosenort, Lowell Farm, and Sperling. And we also do contribute to the Town of Morris Fire Department, although theirs is an independent fire department. We don't control it, but we do contribute to it. Our budgeted amount for 2020 is $313,275. That's the operating, plus we have an additional allocation to the reserve of just shy of 104,000 to set aside for future fire capital items. In 2020, the mill rate for the fire service equals 0.979, or just less than 1 mil. Last year we had a company by the name of KTEC that had 2 different unfortunate occasions. And here's a quick testimonial by Mike Politsky, who is the president of KTEC Earth Movers. I wanted to take this opportunity to express how extremely impressed I have been with the professionalism and dedication that the Rosenort Fire Department displayed in the wake of the 2 fire emergencies experienced by our organization. Having 2 fires within 6 months of each other would have been devastating to the organization. And even though the first fire resulted in complete rebuild, we were tremendously impressed with the speed with which the department responded and extinguished the flames. The second fire was a coordinated effort between 3 departments, and if it was not for the quick response and unparalleled assessment of the situation, that the building was salvaged with only minor damage. The loss would have been a devastating one for KTEC, as the building houses our main production and many jobs would have been impacted. On behalf of myself and the entire KTEC family, we are extremely humbled that such an exceptional team exists in Rosenort and the Arm of Morris. That was by Mike Politsky. So we thank him for that testimonial. It speaks to our ability. Then we focus a little bit on the gravel program. And as you can see, the graphic that just came up is our gravel program for 2020. And as you see, this is Road 31 North here, 10 miles. We are increasing the level of gravel on that road this year from 6 loads per mile to 10 loads per mile. And then this road down here, this mile stretch, is Road 27. And currently it's dirt. And in order to, it would normally, if it was the level that it has, is normally it would get 5 loads. So this year, to establish it, we're putting in 10 loads. Some people may wonder how many miles of gravel we have, and the answer is 238.8. That's in our spreadsheet, so it's technical, so basically 240 miles of gravel. And how many tons of gravel do we need to apply on these roads in 2020? It is just shy of 42,000 tons. So that's a lot of gravel and a lot of roads. Next, we'll focus a little bit on the drain plan. The items you see in blue all over the map here, that is our 2020 drainage program. And there is one stretch right here in red that is possible maintenance. Our public works manager will decide on when this area here is being done, whether that will be needed after this is done. So some people may wonder how many miles of work we're doing in 2020. It's 37.5 miles. Then let's go back a little bit, back up to our reserve allocations. And here's just showing the numbers that we're putting into the reserves in 2020. General reserve is just shy of 35,000. Public works equipment is just over, just shy of 320. Fire equipment, as stated earlier, 1039. Gas tax reserve, this comes from the federal government that we can use for various different things, but we're limited as to what we can use it for. And then the infrastructure reserve of 35,000. And then we have a couple of economic development reserves with that both together equal around $8,000. Now we'll show a little bit graphically how our reserves have been handled. Balances at the end of the year from 2002. So the first graphic that comes up, this is a general reserve. So as you can see, back in 2002, it started around, it was around 200,000, and it has grown to be just over 1 million. The next one is our equipment reserve, and this is used for purchasing our public works equipment. And just to refer back to the general reserve, the province refers to that as the rainy day fund, so that could in essence be our rainy day fund. The next reserve coming up is the gas tax reserve. So as you can see this blip here back in 2015-16, that reflects the contribution that we made to the province of Manitoba when we partnered with upgrading PR 330, the 5 miles from 205 to the Road 36. And then we have the fire reserve. As you can see, it was fairly flat for a number of years, and we have been trying to fund it so that long term that the reserve can fund the capital purchases. And then we have a couple of smaller ones there, the economic development reserves. And then lastly is our utility reserve, which is basically at zero. We are hoping that the utility will have some surpluses that we can start funding it a little bit better. 2020 capital projects, just a list of them. Replacement of public works equipment, and that's a number of different pieces of equipment. The grader leases and an excavator are the two primary ones. Completion of internet improvement project, that's the Valley Fiber build. We carried forward 200,000 into this year. And Riverside Road upgrade, multi-year project. We are looking at spending $100,000 a year for the next number of years to upgrade Riverside Road. And some building maintenance items, the administration office furnace. Then, as you're all aware, we created the fiber optic network in both Low Farm and Rosenort last year, and also some wireless items. So we are connecting our buildings. RM buildings will all be on its own network. And then technology upgrades, new servers and different things and this will only be used if we need it. Used truck for the Sperling Fire Station to replace one of the outdated units. Some turnout gear replacement. Turnout gear is approximately $3,000 per set, so that would provide turnout gear for approximately 7 firefighters. We do have approximately 55 firefighters in our 3 halls, so as you can see, we have a number of units to go in the next couple of years, and they all need to be replaced before 2023, I believe it is. Rosenort fire paging system move, 7,000 to go from the old fire hall to the new fire hall. New radio system for the firefighters. The province of Manitoba has a FleetNet system, and they have changed that, so we need to get new radios. compressor system for SCBA breathing tank refills and that this will be located at the Rosenort Fire Hall. We have had a gracious donor who has, over the last 2 years, donated $10,000 a year towards that breathing tank apparatus, compressor, and then we have some other revenues from MPI and things like that that we're setting aside, and that will cover the $40,000 purchase price. And then the possibility of doing some renovations to Sperling Fire Hall. We don't know what that will look like, but we have made an estimate that the potential is there to do something, but we don't know what it will look like. We don't have any finalized plans. That's a future decision of council. So the total general capital projects is just shy of $1.3 million. And then let's focus a little bit on the LUD of Rosenort and some special projects for 2020. As we talked about at our committee of the whole meeting, we talked about Rose Lane and Spruce Crescent. Spruce Crescent is in need of some repairs, and Rose Lane, we're looking at some parking spots there. So we've set aside $50,000 for that. And then also in the LUD, council has been talking about starting to close some of the urban ditches and replace it with storm sewer drainage systems. So we'll put in $50,000 this year to see how far that goes and what we can get done there. Tree planting, we've set aside $30,000 in this budget for tree planting on the former South Dyke property primarily, but also there's some trees on the East Dyke and North Dyke, or the former East Dyke and North Dyke that need some replacement. River Road South, this crosswalk at the Rosenort School. We have received permission from Manitoba Highways to relocate that sidewalk 50 feet north of where it currently is. So it'll provide a little bit more safety. And we have also received permission to put up an illuminated crosswalk, and that will be shared together with the school division. So we've made the provision here. So people will see that hopefully before the start of school in September. Then we switch over a little bit to the utility system capital, and we're budgeting. We have 3 utility water reservoirs, and they all have different types of equipment. So each of them has a chlorine sensor. So we're looking at replacing those. And then we're looking at putting in a new water line to service the Rosenort Industrial Park, and we'll extend some of the sewer line there. So that we're estimating at around $100,000. And then each reservoir will get a new water reservoir data logger. And we have to keep accurate records, and so that's about $10,000 per reservoir. We have a system, a meter reading system that is in need of replacement. It can no longer be serviced. So in order to read the water meters, we need to upgrade that piece of equipment. And then every year we make provision that we may do some rural water line extensions. So we do put a number in there of 100,000, and the provision is there in case we need it. And the next one is also provision in case we need it of 100,000, which is for sewer upgrades. You always have to have something in case something goes wrong. So that's why those 2 are kind of there. And then we have a big item here, the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. Again, it's fully dependent on approval by the federal and provincial governments. And our total application was just shy of $15 million. And if fully approved, the Arnold Morris would be responsible for $3.95 million. Now, that $3.95 million, this primarily consists of 3 major projects. One is a water reservoir, and one is a lagoon upgrade for Rosenort. And then approximately $10 million of this item is provision for rural sewer to the community of Albany and north and south and in between. So that's what the whole 14 million. We have not heard whether we're going to get it at all, but we need to make provision in case we do. So then here is the mill rate table, and in our taxes we have uncontrollable, and that's basically the first ones are education, We have 3 different school divisions we work with, and then we also have the levy from this is called foundation levy from the province of Manitoba. Then we have our debentures, which are also not controllable, because once you enter debenture, then it's locked in for that period of time. And then we have our controllable items. And controllable is things like the community center districts, and then all our various different internal mill rates. So then let's focus on the municipal mill rates a little bit. And we have 5 different community center districts that we collect funds for. So our mill rates will vary across the municipality depending on which area you're in. So in essence, we have 9 different mill rates across the municipality. And here you see the 2019 mill rates, 2020. As you can see, because our assessment increased, our mill rates are actually decreasing. So this is the actual mill rate decrease, and then the percentages that they're decreasing by. So that's the municipal only. Now, when we add in the school division levies, we have even more variety and even more lines. So again, 2019, 2020 increase and percentage. So then we wonder what happens to the tax bills. And so on a residential property that was worth $250,000 in 2019, the portioning factor is 45% on residential. So you have a portioned assessment of $112,500. So you take that 112, that becomes your portioned or your taxable assessment. The 2019 mill rate is shown here, and the 2019 taxes. Now, residential increased by 7.71%. So that's across the board. So in 2020, the portion value or the taxable assessment is just over 121,000. So you multiply that by the mill rate in the appropriate category, you get to the 2020 taxes. As you can see in yellow, the municipal taxes are all decreasing, and the percentage decrease is shown in the last column. The bottom, again, including school division, so the same rationale. Then commercial property is portioned out, again, a $250,000 property. Commercial portioning is 65%, so we get to a taxable assessment of $162,500. Again, 2019 portion value, mill rates, taxes. The assessment increase was 6.43%. So the 2020 portion values, again, the taxes are going down on commercial. And again, bringing in education at the bottom. And then we get to farmland. We took a quarter section of land, which is 160 acres. And in 2019, that was worth $701.84, portioning of 26% on farmland. So the portion values are just shy of 184,000. Again, same rationale. Portion value times the mill rate, taxes. The assessment increase was 14.85%. So in 2020, you get 211,170. The mill rates, the tax, the amount of taxes. Farmland, it increased more than the average, so the taxes are going up. In this chart, I've also included an increase decrease per acre. So you see the percentage amount, and then, for example, in the rural, the Morris CCD, it's going up by 23 cents per acre. Again, including school division, that's shown down here. That is it for the presentation. Is there any questions?